Home brothers, the title of this video is that MIPS is not pleasurable. And at the KBH we use the word MIPS instead of the word sex. MIPS means mucosally induced prostatic spasms. That should be graphic and accurate enough for you. MIPS, all caps. And if people were having sex, really our population in the world would be several gazillion, so it's impossible. When people talk about having a quote-unquote sex life, it's impossible. They're not doing anything, they're not creating anything, they're not putting their seeds in the ground with water so the plants grow, but rather simply flushing them down the toilet in every disgusting and unspeakable method imaginable. And this is not what we would call intercourse. So intercourse proper is something separate. But there is part of the experience which is the same, and that is what we call the death spasm. The death spasm is a piece of brain candy that the body gives you in order to cover up your pain, to cover up your regret, and to cover up a lot of other things, cover up your sense of danger. These things are all checkable on the internet. For example, brain surgeons have seen how when somebody is engaged in that practice, that the danger center of the brain, the alarm, just completely shuts off. In other words, if at that point somebody were to pull out a gun or start a fire or something, presumably the couple would just keep going because they seriously don't have any fear of anything, especially fear of very real things like killing there's this half-formed infants and human life that is found in the vibrant and precious male creative fluid. Another part that is really not enjoyable about MIPS is the whole concept of a quote-unquote relationship. I mean, one of the big reasons I became a celibate is because I don't want to hear the nya. I don't want to hear the constant, oh, my feelings, or let's sit down and talk about my feelings, or do you like my skirt, or all these other kinds of weird things that women will throw at you. And because women are in general, they're less conscious than most men, they're less logical than most men, you're not really going to get into the female mind, or let's say the female interrelationship's mind, through any kind of a logical process or a reasoning process. And what this does is it puts an enormous psychological burden on you the minute you start. And the death spasm is addictive, and it is completely identical in brain chemistry to a heroin rush. This was proven by Gert Holstege. And the first experience that you would have, for example, like a mushy kiss, or petting, or these other things that are sexual, your actual first reaction, if you can remember, is nausea. You're actually not feeling good when it happens, and you're probably doing it because of some sort of peer pressure or some idea that you should do it. In my generation, it was because we were all watching like Growing Pains and Bill Cosby and all these really dumb things on TV that were telling us that to be normal we have to quote unquote like women. Actually, I mean, doing that to a woman is hating her. It's not respecting her at all. It's a kind of a rape. I mean, I'll agree with these weird Jewish feminazi, whatever you call them. They call the act itself a kind of a rape, but it's a rape of everybody. It rapes the man as well. It rips out a huge part of his guts, which is hemorrhaging, and it doesn't cost nothing to get that roller coaster ride and that big wee, death spasm, and that wee is just like you're on coke or something. And the first time you do these things, did you remember the first time you had a beer, or the first time you had a cigarette, or the first time you tried anything addictive, if you ever tried those things? It always causes a kind of a nausea, and you force yourself over the nausea. How does that happen? Well, you just keep doing that thing until the addictive behavior and the rush starts to cover over your fear and your pain and your nausea until you start, it becomes an addiction. And the way we define addiction is when somebody is hurting themselves and they want to hurt themselves, and the pain and nausea of the things they're doing to themselves, they can't feel it. They can't feel what's going on to them. And it's like how smokers can't see their black lungs, filled with tar and stuff. That's for smokers who smoke it in and who are, constantly smoking cigarettes and stuff. They have a unbelievably filthy body. The stink and the retch comes out on their feet and their armpits, their sweat, all their clothes, and the beards turn yellow, their fingers turn yellow. It's really, really disgusting, and they can't smell it. They can't really feel like, well, this is what I'm doing to myself. And that's sort of what's ridiculous about terminal cancers, terminal conditions of the respiratory tract and the heart. Typically Asians have more of a reaction in the heart because the water qualities they have. But how could you have such an extreme physical condition? How many physical conditions were you ignoring up to that point? Because for me, when I even feel a little bit strange, I'll just adjust what I'm eating, adjust what I'm doing, and then I don't get sick. But I think a lot of these people cannot feel their own bodies. They can't feel what's actually happening to them. Now, finally, we have to draw the line also that once we've understood that the death spasm is addictive, then we understand that yes, we were nauseous, or we felt bad when it first happened. Watching your first porno tape or things like that was like a kind of being raped, and it's what these directors and what these mafia people, and they are mafia people who produced this porno films, they're raping us, and they're stabbing us with these steely knives, and they're ripping out our guts, and you can really, really feel it. And so for any brothers who have had the experience and who are not virginal or who have gotten themselves into addictions before, remember that first step, remember the nausea, remember the pain, and it's good to remind you of what you're really getting into. Another really important point, that it's not pleasurable, is that the body itself is a fairly ugly thing, and if you really, really want to worship a body, please go to YouTube videos where they show dissections. I've seen also the breast implant videos. There's all kinds of surgeries. There's a meat-eating bodybuilder who gets 10 pounds of worms pulled out of his stomach. And people typically would post pictures of this bodybuilder on their wall and say, oh, he's really awesome, he looks really huge, he's Schwarzenegger, or he's the body. And you've got to watch what's in his gut too. You have to see what's on the inside. You have to see the whole picture. Don't just sit there and think about gourmet food all day and then just ignore the poop. Because with food there's poop, and with MIPS there's this whole other thing that comes along with it, and it's not all that unsimilar to poop. The holes at the end of a woman, one hole puts out the poop, the other hole puts out a poop machine. And even our householder brothers told me, after they have a kid, like, well, I really envy you, because just the pure stink of the poop coming out of the baby, and with the boy babies, they they might pee in your face when you're trying to change the diaper and stuff, and the constant crying, and then sort of being cute and saying "Daddy, I love you" to make up for it, and then this bittersweet love that the parents feel. It's probably better just to avoid it altogether. And then if you then decide to have a death spasm, you might as well make a kid. I mean, that's our position at the KBH. Why would you go through this nya with a woman and be put under all that bean counting and all this other stuff, this enormous mental burden, and then have nothing to show for it. You don't even have a family. That would lead to a next video, which would condemn the misandry, and we say male misandrists are what people call homosexuals. They're committing a crime that's further down the line, that's worse, because as a habit waste their seed, and they have no concept of the way things should be naturally and the design of the world and how we go with that, as opposed to trying to block that. So how does celibacy and the brotherhood fit into this knowledge that MIPS is not pleasurable? Well, the position of celibacy is not ascetic. It's not ascetic. It's not pain. I'm not in pain because I'm celibate. And the way we see celibacy is the middle path, brothers, because yes, nature is going to put pressure on you to reproduce, but even beyond that, there's so much propaganda in the world that goes many times beyond what nature is giving you. Wolves are natural, and still most of them will not household. So what human beings are doing is beyond natural, and the number of humans who are householding is beyond the natural number. And to be a celibate, we're just saying no. We're not saying, well, I'm going to torture myself or sleep on a bed of nails or burn my skin or do these other things, or let Corpus Christi walk around with thorns in my leg or thorns in my shoes and stuff like that. We're not torturing ourselves. We're just saying no. I just want to live life. I want to enjoy life, and I don't want all these complications. I enjoy working and praying and having a space to myself. Like, how do you sleep with somebody in your bed? I mean, even that. You might say there's a sort of a comfort, like having a kitty on your lap for a little bit of time, but there's constant disruption. And we have a Catholic priest friend on YouTube here, Sonny, and he mentioned that to him the biggest deal about celibacy is just he doesn't want somebody in his bed, rolling around and waking them up and doing these things. It's like, my bed is my bed, and I want to have a good solid sleep, and I enjoy being alone most of the time, and when we're together with the brothers, we're happy. Well, looks like my light is cutting out because it's just so bright in here. That's Prabhupada on the wall. Jai Prabhupada, Hare Krishna, everybody, and Om.